Welcome to the People Teaching People podcast. Joining me on the podcast are Jamie McInnis and Teresa Bent. I met Teresa when she and I were both teaching in the Workland School of Education at the University of Calgary. She shared with me an incredible opportunity to apply with her in a job share position as academic engagement facilitators with Applied Research and Innovation Services, ARIS, at SAIT, the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology here in Calgary, Alberta. We were hired for the role by Jamie McInnis. Jamie, the director of the ARIS Hub at SAIT, has 20 years experience managing and leading research teams in an entrepreneurial post-secondary environment. She demonstrates excellence in overseeing stakeholder relations between government, industry, Indigenous, and post-secondary partners to facilitate the strategic execution and management of fundamental and applied industry-driven research projects in STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. SAIT's Applied Research and Innovation Services is a driving force behind Alberta's cutting-edge research landscape. The 77,000 square foot state-of-the-art research labs and facilities are fueled by a dynamic team of 80-plus research experts dedicated to providing services and solutions to organizations. Teresa Bent, a past SAIT grad and business owner, has an extensive 34-year background in the field of education. Along with her classroom experience, she was an educational leader and coach in literacy education, English language learning, and inclusive education. After receiving her master's in 21st century educational leadership from the University of Calgary, she went on to teach at Workland School of Education. Her other leadership experiences include 25 years both locally and nationally with a nonprofit organization. Currently, she's excited to be one of 2 academic engagement facilitators with the ARIS Hub at SAIT, helping to build relationships among the research centers and academic schools and working to create a framework for student engagement in applied research. Thank you both so much for joining me today, Teresa and Jamie.
Glad to be here.
So, you both have incredibly rich and diverse experiences in the field of education. And I always love to start with my guests by learning more about them and their stories. And for each of you, you started your careers as elementary school teachers, and now you're both working at the ARIS Hub at SAIT. So, what have been some of your key milestones and experiences along the way?
So I started teaching and then I decided to try a more entrepreneurial route, stepping away from teaching a little bit. And that course led me to the university in the end, working in kinesiology research. And then I went to engineering research. So this is in research administrative roles, not actually doing the research. I don't have that much diverse experience. Then over to SAIT and eventually became the director of research. So that is a career in research administration. I have a policy background. And yeah, that's how I ended up in the ARIS Hub.
And what about you, Teresa?
I spent about 34 years in public school education as an elementary school teacher, a coach, working with diverse learners. But I always had an interest in teacher education. So from earlier on in my career, I knew that I wanted to end up at some educational institution working with young teachers. So when I retired, I spent 2 years at the University of Calgary at the Workland School of Education, working as a field instructor. And that's where I met you, Tiana. And I actually met Jamie when I first started teaching. So we have history, which is lovely. And then Jamie was looking for someone with an education background to facilitate some connection with the academic side of SAIT. And she approached me and I said I wouldn't do it unless Tiana joined me. And so, so here we are. And that's how I ended up at SAIT and working with both of you.
So with the ARIS Hub, and before starting my role there, I had no idea that research was happening at SAIT. I had asked you, Jamie, about your most frequently asked questions, and you shared that one of them was from staff and faculty at SAIT who want to know what the ARIS Hub is all about, and they want to know more about the work of the research teams. And I know that when Teresa and I started in our role, we definitely felt like there was sort of an air of mystery around ARIS and what exactly it is and what happens there. So what exactly is the ARIS Hub?
The ARIS Hub is a applied research center at SAIT. So we have 4 centers of research, one focused on green building, one focused in materials and manufacturing, one focused in heavy lift drone beyond visual line of sight drone work, the applications of those drones, and one focused in clean energy solutions. So basically greening up the oil patch. And their skill set is in the water area. So we take industry driven challenges and then we bring those solutions to the field. So we don't do fundamental research, we do novel research or do novel solutions for industry challenges, quick turnaround stuff for companies. We also do some social innovation research, like delivery of medical supplies to remote communities, for example.
I wonder if there's an example or a story of some of the applied research happening at the ARIS Hub that you could expand on so people can understand really how amazing the type of work that's happening there really is.
Well, we had a company that they had originally developed a technology for NASA to detect hydrocarbons on Mars. And then they had an idea about transferring the concept from that to detecting hydrocarbons from the oil patch. They need to detect hydrocarbons in the process of doing SAGD work in the wells. And so they kind of sketched it out on a napkin. They came to say, could you build us something to put this in? And do you have the electronics for this? And actually, can we control it from our phones? So we built them the heavy metal case to enclose the electronics in. We figured out how to do the electronic detection of the hydrocarbons and other elements inside of the tube. And now we have a solution that's commercial interest from the 7 major oil and gas producers in the country. And you just drop it down the well. Nobody needs to go into the field anymore, and they can control it from their phones. So that's one example of an applied research solution.
Well, that is pretty amazing and sounds incredibly cool.
It is.
And I know with all of us having had experience in a university setting, the type of research that happens there, also amazing and incredible, but different. So how would you describe the difference between more applied research and more theoretical?
So the university is really focused on fundamental research, and it's driven often by the curiosity of the researcher at the university. So they have an area of interest and they want to explore more, understand in more detail about the fundamentals of how that area works, what makes it kind of tick. At SAIT, we're interested in taking that knowledge and then applying it to solve today's challenges. And so that is why our research is industry driven or community driven. We have a challenge that's happening right now. I need to fix it. What we like to tell industry partners and community partners is what's kind of keeping you up awake at night right now. If only we could do X, we'd be so much better, or we could beat our competitors, or we would have a new product line. Those are the kind of things that companies and industry community partners could come to us with, and we help them get that X done. So our projects are shorter. We're not doing 10, 20, 30 years of research. We're doing 6 months, 2 years, 3 years, and getting a solution done, getting it pilot tested on the bench, out the door, and commercialized. So these solutions are quick done. And at the same time, training people who know how to do that thing. And often those staff members are then becoming staff members of the companies that we're working with because they know how to do it.
All sorts of cutting edge, very cool things happening in the ARIS Hub. And I know that we as well, of course, have our incredible 5-year strategic plan that our whole community has been really focusing on. And one of the key objectives is to elevate lifelong learning engagement and increase student engagement opportunities with the ARIS Hub. Teresa and I always talk about our favorite quote that you have shared with us, Jamie, and that is, it's not students or research, it's students and research. And I'm wondering if I can get both of your thoughts on what exactly student engagement is all about?
Well, I think as our research centers are part of an educational institution, that says that we have a responsibility to engage with the academic side of SAIT and also create opportunities where we can get students involved in some of our projects so that we create somewhat of a feedback loop. So we're actually working with the industry partner, helping them with their problems, but we're also facilitating and supporting the curriculum at SAIT. So it could be a student coming over and doing a capstone or a practicum or a part-time job, or it could even be an instructor coming over and wanting to look at our equipment to enhance their curriculum. But it could also be them bringing a class over and saying, we had a class come and they wanted to understand, it was an entrepreneurial class. They wanted to understand, how do we start with an idea to prototype? And so they went and visited one of our labs and they were able to explain or teach the students how they facilitate that kind of process. So I think it's really important, and I'm glad that we're starting to make more connections with that academic side.
What are your thoughts on student engagement, Jamie? What does it mean to you?
Student engagement is the student actively participating in the research. So we want students to be there beside our industry partners, beside our scientists that are in the lab, helping understand the process of developing a research project and bringing about a solution to completion, but also bringing their vision to the solution and their creativity and their experiences to what a solution might look like. So the more diverse and volume of number of people sharing their experiences and ideas into a solution, the better the solution will be. And the better it will apply to a broader number of users as well, like different kinds of, like sometimes the industry will be a little bit narrow in who they're bringing their solution for. And then a student might say, yeah, but when I use that service that you're giving, I need this, not just that. And so the students, when we engage with them, they bring a lot more breadth of vision towards those solutions. The other thing about student engagement is that students, their experience at school, we don't want it to be a stagnated, just sit in the classroom experience. And we want them to be actively engaged in doing things and moving around the campus, going in and out of these really interesting state-of-the-art spaces and seeing that the pathway for when they come out is really quite broad. And so we expose them to industry, we expose them to social groups, we expose them to being a scientist, which they might not have thought when they came to SAIT that their outcome opportunity would be to be a scientist working in a lab. And so we want to just to give them a little bit more breadth of the kind of opportunities they might have when they leave.
There are so many incredible benefits to having students involved. Like obviously the students get that rich real world experience. What might be some of the other benefits that could entice stakeholders to get involved and engaged with applied research?
When we bring stakeholders in to get involved, when they have students there, it's almost like test driving new employees. You can come in and work with our staff. Please don't take our top staff, but you can also work with bringing in the students and work with them and see, is this person a fit for the culture of our work environment? And also you can train them to be exactly how you want them to be inside of your staff without having it at any cost. We're also eligible for lots of different kinds of granting programs, right? So the students can come in and get paid to participate in the research program because they're a student, and we're eligible for those funding programs. So they're getting experience on equipment that's not necessarily available any other places, often in Western Canada. Some of the equipment is the only equipment in Canada that we have at our institution. So you're getting really first class experience on equipment. And then the company may decide like, hey, we're checking to see if we want to buy this equipment. So we're going to go to SAIT, run a project there, see if it's a good choice for our company to invest in that kind of very expensive equipment. And then, and that student knows how to run it. Awesome. Then this is also someone we might want to hire. So we're giving students a lot of practical experiences inside of those environments.
Definitely a win-win for everybody involved. And Teresa, you touched on like the diverse ways that students can become involved in applied research with the ARIS Hub. And I'm wondering if you have a specific story or example. You mentioned the instructor who brought his group of students in for a really focused tour opportunity, but any other projects or opportunities that stand out in your mind?
Yes, well, part of our process was when we first came to SAIT, was to get to know everyone, to go around and interview all the schools, do a needs assessment, figure out like what kind of connection can they have. And one of the things we discovered was we started making connections with the School of Business. And we started thinking, it's not something that you wouldn't have thought of, that the kinds of students we could engage at the ARIS Hub, because mostly we're science focused, but we had a brainwave and we thought, you know what? There's always business to be done. We have business in ARIS. How can these business students come and get experience, get involved in a research project, but use their skills as business students? And the capstones in the School of Business, you would have a diverse skill set. So you may have some accounting students, some marketing students, some supply chain students. So a group of them would come and work on our research projects. So what they do in these capstones is the industry would come and pitch to the students their idea of how they could be involved in a capstone. And we were pleasantly surprised. Out of one of the classes, almost every student in that class wanted to come and work on one of our projects. So that said to us, we are interesting. We have something to offer. And so it was really cool. We had two working on a data management system, collecting how to collect our metrics. And we had 3 groups, so that's 10 students, and we had another 15 students working on a life cycle assessment for our green building research group on a building project with an Indigenous community. And it was an amazing experience for both students, researchers, and industry partners. And actually, we kind of used it as our pilot, didn't we, Tiana? Like it was our pilot project to see what this looks like to engage students. And I think it was quite successful on all fronts.
Yeah, it was. I think we had lots of successes. Everyone had great successes and also a really great learning opportunity for ourselves and everybody involved. As part of our work as academic engagement facilitators, we've been tasked by Jamie to create a framework for student engagement in applied research. We have our official launch party happening in the middle of October. And so there's lots of pieces and parts to it, but one of the things that it's really sort of all based on is to define, guide, and support a common, high quality, meaningful approach to student engagement in applied research activities within the ARIS Hub. But I'm curious, Jamie, this was your idea, so why was it so important to have the framework?
Well, Teresa likes to say we don't just want students engaged washing beakers when they're doing applied research. And that is basically the epitome of this. So I didn't say it so eloquently, but that's exactly what it is we want students who come in to have, first of all, an equal experience wherever they come into ARIS in any one of our centers or any one of our research projects. And we also want them to do something very meaningful. So beyond just being kind of that lab rat, we want them to be there doing meaningful work. And so we needed a framework to make sure that the way that they were engaged, that they understood everything that happened in ARIS, not just their one little area, that they could see the entire big picture of ARIS and what we did there, and then know where they were fitting inside of ARIS and their project, and then how their project would push out of ARIS, and then how their project fits back into the school that they're coming from and the training that they're getting. So we wanted to fit it all together and give them a really complete experience. And to do that, we needed to look at the educational experience of the students. And that's why I wanted educators like yourself and Teresa to come in. And I put on my historical education hat and said, I need to bring in somebody who can bring that value of education and will speak to the academic side of the house in their language and build a framework that really speaks to education. And that's where I wanted that focus to be, of that experience, that it was giving them a research experience inside the educational environment. that was super important to me.
So off we went, Teresa and
Yes.
I, to work on this. And Teresa, I'm wondering if you can speak to what the journey has been like from your perspective in creating this framework.
So, first of all, just being able to meet so many different kinds of people. Both Tiana and I love meeting people, love hearing their stories, and loved hearing what's happening at SAIT, like what kind of programs they were offering. So I think we've got somewhat a broader picture than a lot of people because we had the opportunity to go in and meet people. And we also wanted to find out like what their capstones were like. What were their student experiential learning opportunities? What was expected within the program? And then so we started thinking, well, how can that connect with our particular research groups? And it was interesting because all of us come from teaching backgrounds, but this was an opportunity to use, it wasn't exactly teaching, but it was an opportunity for Tiana and I to use our knowledge of education, our experience working with students, and able to apply that to somewhat of a plan, a guidebook in working with students. And I found that exciting. I must like that kind of stuff, but I really found that exciting that we could actually use everything, our backgrounds, our experiences, and research about education, implement that in a guidebook.
It was such a fun, interesting experience to have all the conversations that we got to have with such a diverse group of stakeholders. So, like people from the schools, people from the ARIS Hub research team. And Teresa, you and I were joking about how much coffee we consumed over the course of the last almost 2 years as we've been listening and asking questions and really getting curious about how to improve the number of opportunities and the types of opportunities that students get to have and really build upon the awesome stuff already happening with students and for students at the ARIS Hub. So our framework is super comprehensive. We put so much time and energy and effort and care into it, really looking at who it is for, the guiding principles, there's key definitions and roles and responsibilities. And we talk about some of the different pathways that students can get involved and how some of them start with the ARIS Hub itself. And there's some ideas initiated there, or schools, instructors, or academic chairs might approach us with some ideas, or even students might reach out to us. So there's lots of different ways and pathways for students to get involved in applied research at the ARIS Hub. But at the heart of it, I think Teresa and I both agree, is relationships and mentorship, and sort of a focus on that is a really big part about how we engage students in applied research. And I was wondering if you could talk about why exactly is mentorship and why are relationships so important when we're engaging students?
Well, I think when you think of mentorship, often we think of it being one-sided, like the mentor is giving to the mentee. And I think it's interesting to note that it's actually, and Jamie's kind of touched upon this, that it's a reciprocal relationship. You know, everyone is contributing to everyone's experience and knowledge, and it can be like a powerful, life altering experience. So I think I don't take that lightly when we talk about mentorship. And there are some people that it comes naturally and they just are mentors at heart. But I think to actually purposefully train our mentors and kind of give them more information about how to successfully mentor a student. And so we're committed to that as well. So we haven't done that yet, but it is part of our framework, and we're looking forward. We're going to be building mentorship training as well. We're hoping that it doesn't just lie with us. We really believe in replicating ourselves. I think that is so important, that everything doesn't lie with us, but we're training and replicating what we know and passing on. In a sense, we're mentoring our mentors who will mentor other mentors. And so we're hoping that it just keeps going and it really enrich the experiences of the students and the skill set that lies within each research center as well.
So a question for both of you. What has been something that you would consider to be a key takeaway or something that you've learned from your experiences with student engagement in applied research?
I think a key takeaway is for student engagement to be successful, it has to be meaningful from the student's perspective. And so we have to remember that we're not imposing this on the student. We are taking it from the student's perspective and doing it with the student. And so sometimes we bring the students in and it's like, oh, hey, we're doing you a favor. And that's kind of the thing that we're trying to stop at ARIS and switch it over that this is part of their learning experience. We want to know, what does the student want to learn? Where is the student's interest? And it's student focused. That's why it's a student framework and not a research framework. And so this is all about the student. And I really liked what Teresa was saying about the mentorship, this kind of sustainability framework inside of there, that it becomes a kind of a self-sustaining cycle where mentors beget mentors, and it kind of goes around like that. And that we want to just keep that cycle going, that feeling that I can teach you and you can teach others is so, oh my gosh, that's your podcast.
It really is.
Yeah, all the points that I would say is that students are at the center. It's about the students. And it's to realize it is an investment and that will take time. Any kind of mentoring situation takes time. And even to plan with intent each mentorship or each research project, so that we talk about planning from the beginning. Where can a student fit in all of this? And that's intentional. And that is also saying we're willing to invest in our students.
Yeah, we value the student and the student contribution, and we value the student experience. So all of those things are key in this. And that's why we chose to invest in Teresa and Tiana, taking the time to build a complete framework out and explore it and edit it and adjust it as we implement it and see how it goes. This isn't a rush thing that we've done. It was a very intentional, thorough process that we're going through.
Yeah. And even as we launch it, I think a key message that Teresa and I have for the ARIS Hub community is that this is a living document. So it's not just done. We're going to continue to listen and learn and get feedback and make changes and improvements. So we're really supporting the important student engagement work that's happening at the ARIS Hub. Now, other post-secondary institutions might be curious about adjusting, changing, improving their student engagement in applied research experiences. So what advice might you have for them?
Well, from my perspective, please don't reinvent the wheel. Just call. Like, we have two beautiful experts right here who are available to share, have a coffee. They seem to love drinking coffee and they'd be happy to have a coffee. You could buy it for them and let them share what they know in their experience. We're happy to share whatever we do. We really believe in that kind of community of collaboration. And you can have a copy of our student engagement framework and see what will work inside of your environment and what won't. And maybe you'll see some things where you can say, hey, have you ever thought about trying this or that, and give us also some feedback. So we're really open to that. I don't have any problem sharing that or for the team to receive feedback. What do you ladies think about that?
I think one of the things that in the process, Tiana and I realized we had talked to some other people about their student engagement framework. And what we learned is that nothing can be like a carbon copy, because we are part of a different kind of educational community. And I think it's to take some time to get to know your community first, as we did, having those interviews, talking to all the stakeholders. So when you go to plan, you've thought about the stakeholders so that it can be more connected and more meaningful for them. So I think take your time, get to know your community, and be okay with it looking different than other institutions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's so important to not reinvent the wheel. Like, there's lots of support and ideas out there, and then to take those ideas and any existing framework servers and then think about your own people and your own community and how things are set up there, and then think about how that might apply best for your people and your institution, for sure. Now, one last question before I let you both go, but You've both had a lot of learning, I'm sure, happen along the ways in your journeys. And I'm wondering, when you think back about experiences you've had and important teachers or mentors that you've had along the way, what would be some advice or words of wisdom that you would share with people listening?
I think my advice or word of wisdom is just be kind to other people and hear their story, understand where others are coming from before you've decided. I usually think that everyone has a good intention. Just find out where people are at. It's been my experience that people are kind. Even when they're not, they're probably just having a bad day. So maybe it's an opportunity for you to be extra kind yourself and step in there. And in this instance, that's a chance for you to also model yourself to others, that even if someone isn't demonstrating something that you would want or do, you could extend that courtesy to be a little bit kinder.
What about you, Teresa?
One of the things I've learned is just the fact that I can learn from anybody. And be it a student, be it even a young child, or anyone I come across, that everyone has something to teach. Everyone is a teacher. And yeah, I just am really surprised at times what I've learned from people that I maybe would have written off or not given the time of day if I take the time, that everyone is valuable and you can learn from everyone. And as Jamie said, be kind. Relationships are key for anything, I think. Any kind of project you want to do, if you don't have good relationships, it's going to affect the project. So I think invest in those relationships.
Well, Jamie and Teresa, thank you both so very much for sharing your time and your stories and all your words of wisdom with us today. If our listeners want to learn more about the incredible work happening at the ARIS Hub, and maybe they're curious about how to get engaged as a student or get their students engaged, where are the best places for them to find out more?
For now, the best place is to come to the ARIS website. So just SAIT and ARIS together will take you right to our website for the ARIS Hub. We will have a student engagement form, but it's not up yet. So just go to the ARIS SAIT website and there's a contact information there. You can find all our contacts up there.
Perfect.
Thanks
Thank
for
you so
having us,
much.
Anna.
And thank you both so much for joining me today. It was wonderful to connect with you and to learn from you.
Thank you.
Anna.